Hello. Hello. Today is February 16th, and I had a goal back in September of last year. It was September 16th. My goal was to run a half marathon in less than 2 hours, and I did not accomplish that goal by September 16th. And I initially set out to, it was about a year ago actually, it might have been exactly a year ago. I ran a half marathon in Chicago, and it was snowing, similar to how it has been today. It was snowing, and I hadn't really been running at all before then. And I'd been in Cabo, so I'd been training on the beach. And now I'm in Chicago running by the whatever lake they have right there, with snow coming down and raining down on me and sticking to my sweatpants. And then I had to run with my sweatpants soaked in snow. So that is what the 16th means to me. That was last February. And then I made something crazy happened to me about a year ago. It might have been in about March. But I'd been struggling with my diet, quote unquote diet, nutrition. I'd been struggling to be more disciplined with my diet and my nutrition. And I'd been going back and forth for months. I'd been going back and forth. I ended up finally following through probably the first week of March or the last 2 weeks of February, so right around where we're at right now. But I'd been trying it for 3 months, probably, maybe 4 months, 5 months. I've been trying it for a long time. It just kept failing. I needed to cut carbohydrates and sugar out of my diet. And the difficulty was doing that while also taking care of my responsibilities in life. Still going to work and still doing what I needed to do at work. And it was a contentious battle. And I was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Somehow, I'm trying to think if it was Monday or a Wednesday. But somehow, one day, I just did it. I did it all. I said, all right, today it is happening. And it wasn't a grandiose, hey, let me plant my flag here and say nobody will ever pass again. I will die on this hill. And it wasn't grandiose, but that is what it was. I needed to get my body into a state of ketosis. And I knew once I got into ketosis, it'd be easy to maintain, but I had to get there first. And I'd been trying it for months and months and months. And one day, I was like, all right, it was like a subtle declaration. It was a declaration, but it was subtle. There's an idea that stuck with me from a long time ago. I heard this from Alan Watts. If you're trying to make a change, basically the idea is that if you're trying to make a change, you shouldn't necessarily announce the change, especially if it is a change for the better, to better your life. Because karma, the reason why you have the bad habits to begin with, are because you've done bad things. You have that karma. And now your bad habits bring you suffering. Your bad habits, your character flaws, these things that are wrong with you that stop you from having adequate self-respect or admiration for yourself, these parts of your character that stop you from feeling any sort of admiration for yourself, they exist for a reason, and they make you suffer, and they exist because you have deserved them. You have behaved in a way, treated others in a way that you deserve them. So it's not random. It is your fault as to why you have these habits, but it's not your lack of willpower. It's nothing else except for life is complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of things that have occurred to get you to this point where you are obese and you need to work out. And if you set a declaration and you're like, all right, I am going to work out. Going forward, I'm going to work out 4 times a week, and it'll start tomorrow, okay? Maybe you'll work out tomorrow. Maybe you won't, but maybe you will. Say you do work out tomorrow. Your karma has not been satisfied. It's like, and the karma is like a debt load. It is like you announcing this declaration of this major change that you're about to make is like being in a wild western town and owing money to people, owing money to the shadiest person in the town who is going to get his. You owe money to this individual, and now, rather than just leaving town and starting anew, you go around town bragging about it and telling everybody. You say, hey, I'm leaving town, it's time to make a change. And now, this mob boss that has heard that you owe the money to, he is calling the debt due. Now he is calling the entirety of it due. Okay, great, you want to leave town? You owe me all of my money. Okay? So, okay, you are obese right now, you're overweight. You want to lose weight, you're telling everybody what you're going to do. Okay. Now you owe me all of my money. It's people think I have an interesting perspective on the stories of the Bible. People say the stories in the Bible are not true. When I was in middle school, I used to think the stories of the Bible were not true. I had a realization that the stories in the Bible were not true. But now, I've come back around and realized they're more true than what I used to even think true meant. There's a story of Christ in the desert, and Satan tempts him for 40 days, and he's in the desert. The desert is the place of deprivation. It's the place of distance from God. You're in the wilderness. God exists internally within yourself. He also exists within the love of other people in the community. People are very individualistic, or they're very collective. Neither is true. They're both true. They're both true at the same time. God exists internally, deep internally, but also within the whole of people. And so the desert, wilderness is distance from both of those things, only going internal. And Christ went into the wilderness, and he was tempted for 40 days. Fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, and then Satan said, hey, turn this rock into bread. If you are Son of God, if you are powerful, turn this rock into bread. And Christ said that man lives not by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. And so when I first heard that story when I was young boy, I was like, oh, okay. Jesus Christ was a man, and he went out into the desert, and this dark human character named Satan, who literally walks the earth and Satan is only one person, but he walks the earth, and he might pick you off at some time and try to tempt you specifically. He'll take his attention from other people and try to tempt you specifically. That is what he's doing with Christ in this situation, is tempting one individual, and it's Christ. Satan and Christ, the hostile brothers. That is what I used to think. And now I realized I myself have participated in this story of the desert often, many, many times, in different ways. So, did Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, go out into the wilderness and get tempted by this man who wields dark powers, dark magic, named Satan, and tried to get him to live opposite of God? Maybe or maybe not. It doesn't matter. The story is true because find out. Find out whether or not the story is true. Fast in the sense of life is short. Life is very short. Because life is short, we are limited. Because we are limited, we are always suffering. There's suffering part of every day, and that's fine. But because that exists, people try to alleviate the suffering. It creates a void, and they fill it with any immediate gratification that they can, and that too is fine. But what if we cut out the things that bring us that temporary reprieve? What if we just decided, hey, I'm going to live not by these immediate pleasures, or even I'm not going to indulge pleasures of the ego. I'm going to live each day perfectly, as well as I possibly can, and I will not indulge any immediate gratification. And I'll do that for 40 days and 40 nights. And then I would encourage people to do that and then see if that story is true. Then tell me whether or not the story of the desert is true. Then you'll understand that it is true. All of these stories are true. All of these stories are true, and there's so much to learn. And I think they are the foundation. They are first principles. They are the joy of those stories to me. They are dramatic and grandiose, but they are so simple. They're the most basic interactions between people, yet told perfectly. So that is that. That is that. I didn't come in here. There's never been a time where I've sat down at this table with less to talk about than I have here today. Never do I have anything written down to talk about. Barely do I even have anything in my mind to talk about. But this day, I woke up with nothing. And even as I sat down in the chair, I could think of nothing. And so I just started speaking. And that is what happened. Yet there is still a day. There is still a day ahead. And it snowed. Snowed, winter storm. Freezing outside. Good. I genuinely believe this. This morning, it sounds egotistical, and obviously this is egotistical because it's not true, but also it kind of is true. My belief on why it snowed today is because I've been in contention with these perfect days and living a perfect day. And now the snow has snowed us into our apartment. Today is the perfect opportunity for me to live a perfect day. It snowed so that I could live a perfect day. Now, obviously, that is not true, but it is true. So, a wrench was thrown into the day. A wrench was thrown into the day. It came into the form of snow and winter storm. and cold. Cars are not able to fully hit the road. People are not able to travel yet. What will you do? The day still exists. The sun is out. Even if the sun were not out, what will you do? This heaven will pass. This season will change. This world that we're living in will change. And everything will come to pass. While you're in the light, what will you do? While you are here, what will you do?